Hope that it matters that some people have grown up never seeing themselves in TV America, and therefore become in their own minds, and maybe the minds of others, not a part of real America. Hope that it matters that other people might read this book and learn the stories of these characters and learn about their inner lives, their subjectivity.
At the beginning of the pandemic, Charles Yu wrote an essay on the experience, which many noted had a cinematic slant to it. 500 years ago, Yu wrote, "What we really mean when we say that this pandemic feels unimaginable is that we had not imagined it. Just as imagination can mislead us, though, it will be imagination, scientific, civic, moral, that helps us find new ways of doing things, helps remind us of how far we have to go as a species." End quote. Having worked as both a television writer and a poet, in addition to writing novels, Yu's imagination is boundless, generous, and vivid. And while his path to his award-winning book, Interior Chinatown, was long and zigzagging, there was endless imagination to keep him going. I'm Rebecca Hoogs, the Executive Director of Seattle Arts and Lectures. You're listening to Sal on Air, a collection of talks from the world's best writers from 37 years of Seattle Arts and Lectures. Charles Yu published his first novel, How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe, in 2010. And in 2020, his novel Interior Chinatown won the National Book Award for Fiction. As the National Book Award judges wrote, quote, "Written in the form of a screenplay with porous boundaries, Yu's wonderfully inventive work spotlights the welter of obstacles its everyman protagonist must confront in a profoundly racist, rigidly hierarchical world as he does his best in the story of his own life to land a decent role." End quote. Following the reading, Yu is joined by University of Washington professor Sean Wang. Together, we hear them discuss Yu's career as a lawyer, the behind-the-scenes world of filmmaking, and what representation means. More than a buzzword or an ideal, Yu speaks with raw authenticity about doubts as well as dreams, in writing so that the invisible characters may become seen. This is Sal on Air.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am very excited to be here. I am very nervous because this lectern is clear, and I've spent the last 2 years doing Zooms in my short pants, and this seems like a deliberate choice, for which I thank Sal. Thank you all for being here. I am very appreciative for you taking the time to come out. Thanks also to the people I understand are online as well. And for those people, I know I'm competing with Netflix and your cell phones and Ring doorbell and all kinds of things, so I will do my best to keep it punchy. I am also appreciative of Sal and the staff and the board. Executive Director Hoogs, thank you for that introduction, and I'm excited to be in conversation with Professor Sean Wang in a little bit. And that is really neat because he edited like a seminal Asian American anthology, and so this is a treat in many ways. It's also a little bit of pressure that you don't know, but for me, I'm pretty sure my wife and kids, Sophia and Dylan, are watching online. So I have to give them a shout out. And this book really, it's dedicated to them. And during the time of writing, they turned from like toddlers and kindergartners into tweens, basically. It took so long to write it. So in a lot of ways, it's a artifact of a whole chunk of my life and my wife's life, and so So yes, the last time, I have the privilege today of talking to you about my second novel, Interior Chinatown. I think the last time I was in Seattle was to talk about my first novel, which was published in 2010, and it's called How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe. And I remember, I got to do a couple of book signings earlier in the day, like stock signings, and then I had the reading at night, and I think it was my very first reading for that book and my first proper tour. And the employee for the bookstore was sort of leading me downstairs into the area where I was going to do the reading, and was sort of doing a lot of nervous talking. And so I was unsure what was happening, and kind of just prepping me, I guess, right? And then finally just sort of lets it out there are 7 people here. And so this big moment in my life. And I'm like, 7 people? And he's like, it's a weekday, and it's your first novel, and it's sci-fi, and I'm like, you're telling me there are 7 people here, and I'm not related to any of those people? And we were having very opposite reactions to the 7 people. So this is better. I appreciate. I've been looking forward to this for a long time for a number of reasons, and there is a pleasure in this that I think sometimes writers, or maybe I'll just speak for myself, this writer, sometimes maybe indulge in, which I think can be a dangerous habit, which is that I can kind of tell this story in a way that is a lie, that really leaves out all of the messy bits, leaves out all of the, struggle and all the failure and all the false starts and dead ends, and really kind of gives a kind of gloss of hindsight to what writing is actually like. And I don't know how many writers are here tonight, or people that know writers, or are married to writers. Sorry for those people, including my wife. She's incredibly supportive, and that's something I'll get to in a little bit. But I think I really want to resist the impulse to narrativize the writing of this book, and kind of tell you the truth. And the truth is that writing a novel is actually very easy. Incredibly easy to write a novel. Writers get up here and they moan and they whine about writing. And of course they do. That's like the pact we have all made with each other. Because really, what are we doing, right? We're sitting, drinking coffee or tea, and so I have written 2 novels and consider myself an expert on writing novels. I've written 1 novel in second person, which is Interior Chinatown, and I have written a novel titled How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe. So I decided to combine those 2 concepts, and the title of my talk is How to Write a Novel in 637 Easy Steps. So I'll look at my watch. In 28 minutes or so, you will know how to write a novel if you don't already know. You might already know, because it's, as you know, it's easy if you are a writer. Okay. 1. Start by applying to medical school. 2, apply to several medical schools, maybe more than a dozen, none of which you have a realistic shot of getting into. You might be tempted to think at this point that this is just a device, maybe a lazy device to structure a bunch of loose, disorganized thoughts, or it's a genius device. Or it's a lazy genius device. I don't know why lazy and genius are mutually exclusive, they really have a lot of overlap. 3. Okay, now I have to go backwards in time. Get into an argument with your dad in 1994 about the fact that you have signed up for English 15, Intro to Literary Theory. 4, throw your shoe over a cliff a mile from your house, along with your Burger King chicken sandwich, after said fight with your father. 4.5. Take that class anyway. Take a bunch other English and creative writing classes, but also major in bio, because your dad wants you to. 5, once you have failed to get into medical school, realize that your heart is not in it, and you would have been a terrible doctor, and probably many lives were saved by you not becoming someone whose job duties included or required being responsible for people's health. So good job, medical establishment. You deserve credit for weeding out someone who, at least in this case, definitely deserved to be weeded out. But also 6, maybe it was a sign that things work out the way they're supposed to. 7, apply to law school. I see not many Perkins Coie people have showed up yet, probably still working. I'm not bitter that Perkins Coie didn't give me a call back. 8, get into law school. 9, go to law school. 10, get a summer job at a fancy law firm. 11, graduate from law school. 12, instead of studying for the bar exam, go to Borders Books every day for several hours for 2.5 months and read fiction. Somehow pass the bar, I don't know how. 13, get admitted to the California bar. 14, practice law for 13 years, way longer than you thought you would survive in that profession. 15, during those 13 years, start writing fiction, first as doodles in the corner of your legal pad, or emails sent to yourself on lunch break or coffee break or late at night after the partners have all gone home and it's just you and the senior associate. And you go into the admin bay and you use the shared computer and log into your Yahoo Mail and send yourself a one-line email with an idea or a phrase that you like. 16, carry that phrase with you like a tiny, tiny security blanket for your tiny, tiny baby art soul. 17, gather these phrases and emails. 18, bring home the dinner you ordered, now cold, to your girlfriend, now wife, and eat it together while watching late-night TV. After she falls asleep, write a short story. A love story told as a series of physics problems. A is traveling on a train towards B, etc. 19, publish the story. 20, publish more stories. 21, publish a book of stories, then a novel. See, it's easy. I told you, it's super easy. Look how fast this went. 22. Get incredibly lucky and have the novel be kind of a minor cult hit that results in, among other things, a book contract for more books. 23. Have a book contract. It's the year 2011. You have made it. It's all easy street from here on out. Step 24. You don't know it yet, but feel in your gut that you are on step 24 of what will eventually be a 637-step plan. 25. Write a sizable chunk of pages. 26. Send it to your agent. 27. Hold your breath for several days until you get an email from your agent. 28. With your heart racing, read the email and feel a full body high upon learning that she loves these pages. You have done it. You are on your way. 29. Get to the end of the email and realize that even with these pages, which she really does love, you are about 10% of the way to finishing your book. Go from a full body high to a profound sadness in the time it takes to read an email. Sidebar. I started writing Interior Chinatown in 2012. At that point, it wasn't called Interior Chinatown. It was called Trilogy. If you're trying to figure out what possible connection there could be between something called Trilogy and something that ended up being called Interior Chinatown, I will save you the trouble. There is no connection at all. So that happens sometimes in book contracts, I guess, or happened to me. Okay, speeding right along. It's the year 2013. 30, spend the next several years lost in the wilderness, searching for the novel that you promised your publisher. 31, remember that you have a wife and 2 toddler-age children. 32, and oh yeah, a full-time job as a lawyer. 33, feel lots of guilt. Be torn between trying to be a good partner and parent on the one hand and writing on the other. Feel like you're failing at both. 34, read the first lines of every novel in your house and many others online and in libraries and stores, trying to remember what you forgot. 35, have a to-do list that includes on it, write a novel for something like 2,000 consecutive days. You should see I should publish my to-do list someday. This is like absurdist fiction. I think you would get it, though. 36, forget how to write fiction. Be paralyzed in the infinite possibilities of blank page and language. 37, actually Google how to write a novel. Yes. 38, maybe click on links that, unsurprisingly, are mostly not that helpful. 39, step 39, remember that you have everything you need inside of you to do this. 40, wonder if that's true. 41, try to remember where you read that. 42, remember that you read that on a pillow. 43, the big pillow. 43, realize you may not have everything you need inside of you. Where did you even get that? Pillows can be a good source of wisdom, like life wisdom, but are not a substitute for an MFA. 44, during this time, grow up a little bit. 45, by growing up, you mean a few things, including becoming a better lawyer. By better lawyer, meaning you feel more comfortable in your own skin, but also realize you're never going to be the best at it. 46, do the same thing about being a dad and a husband and a brother and a son. 47, think about all of these roles, have an idea in your head, know it's in there, try to get it out, but realize it may not be ready to come out. Everyone has a book in them, they say. But everyone also has an appendix in them. And that does not mean it's a good idea to take it out. Especially without proper instruments and sterilization and good lighting. What am I doing on time? Ooh. All right. 48, remember, you already had a book in you. 3, actually. Why are you so greedy? Who is to say there is a 4th book in you? 49, also, who came up with this idea that everyone has a book in them? A pillow? 50, continue to practice law with your dirty, shameful secret, writing. And while doing this, 51, develop a dual identity / imposter syndrome. Actually, I always had imposter syndrome from the beginning, which is part of it. 52, compartmentalize your life. Have no hobbies. Be a bad friend to your friends who are very good friends to you. 53, have a very, very understanding, selfless partner. This is key. Who is willing to be your therapist, life coach, inspiration, best friend, sanity check, person you watch movies with, or actually person who falls asleep while you watch movies. It's more accurate. Generator of good ideas for which he doesn't really get credit. That's a big one. 54, have several false starts at the novel. 55, write 3 different versions of it with different titles. 56, be dumb enough to actually tell people that you are writing a novel with these titles, so that it will forever be memorialized in print by these interviewers that you once thought your book was something completely different than what it ended up being. 57, after several false starts, finally find a way in. 58, the way in is through the consciousness of Willis Wu. 59, realize that you've been wandering around in search of a form for several years when you should have been listening to a voice. This is sidebar number 2. Another way to think about this is writing is a contest between a genius and an idiot. Okay, right? Easy. You should let the genius win. The genius should win anyway, right? By virtue of the fact of being a genius. Except only one of them is a writer, and it's the idiot. The genius wears a tweed coat and works in a Midtown high-rise and lunches at fancy places where Midtown editors also lunch. The genius deliberates deliberately. The genius picks up a pencil, moves a word, puts the pencil down, sends a fax. Fax is a thing that used to exist. I don't know. Goes to lunch, drinks a martini, reads the New York Review of Books, drinks another martini. The idiot eats mostly Hot Pockets, which also I eat. I used to. The idiot understands story structure mostly from reruns of Three's Company. The idiot is the person who creates stuff. Without the idiot, the genius would have nothing to do. The genius has a violin, a cello, a whole orchestra's worth of beautiful instruments. The idiot does not know how to play those instruments. The idiot plays the kazoo. The idiot makes weird and awkward sounds on the kazoo, except when those weird, awkward sounds are strung together, they can, under the right conditions and with enough care, become music. The idiot likes to write because it's easy and feels good. The genius prefers not writing because the genius understands that writing is hard, and also the genius hates himself and never feels good. The two are often in conflict, and that conflict sometimes manifests itself as writer's block. Or what I refer to as everyday life. So to everyone who has ever cared enough about me to worry why my default expression is one of pain, that's what's going on inside. End side note. Step 60, almost 10% of the way there. At this point, I've been talking for quite some time, and all I have done is relay a series of false starts and bad ideas and dead ends. And I realize this might sound like a catalog of things not to do. And it kind of is, to be honest. It's not going to flip into something where it's like magically great advice. I also want to suggest, though, that there may be some value in hearing this, I hope, whether you are a writer or not. And even if you're not a writer, but you're interested in writing, i.e. a reader, I guess that's what you call that kind of person, including me. Boy, really inventing the wheel up here. I hope this is interesting, is what I'm saying. Okay, we're doing all right. Step 61, limp to the end. Cross 200 pages. I don't know why, but that's just my threshold for what a novel is. Although plenty of novels that are great are less than 200 pages. 200 pages in Courier font, 12 point, with wide margins. It's really a rough assembly. Technically, it's a novel, if you squint, and you walk across the room, and you leave the room, and you pour yourself a drink, and drink it, and look at it from a distance. It's a roughly novel-shaped object. But this is a milestone. It does matter, because it's impossible to edit a thing that does not yet exist. 62. But if a thing does exist, no matter how bad it is, you can start improving it. It's not fun. It's painful, literally, sometimes. When you're reading your own rough drafts, you do a lot of holding of your own head. You literally sometimes don't want to look at it. Force yourself to look at it. Resist the urge to delete it, or pour another drink, or go find another job, or binge watch something. Pecking away little by little, every time you touch it, will make it infinitesimally better. That's what you tell yourself. Anyway, 63. Then you wake up 3 months later, and you read a passage, and you go, oh, that's not terrible. That bit right there, that's even, I could build on that. And then you do, and now you're building. And that first bit leads to another bit. Step 64. Wonder if any of this matters. Wonder if Asian American representation matters. Have you just spent 6 to 7 years of your life writing about something that is something a lot of people don't care about, and the people who do care about it might have bigger things to care about now, and or wonder if your subject is becoming moot because society is changing literally every day as you took so long to write the book. 65, realize that you are writing a book in second person. Wonder if this conceit is sustainable without becoming gimmicking. Wonder if the audience is getting tired of this. You have to say, okay. 66, realize you are writing a novel in the form of a teleplay as well. You are really asking a lot of the audience. 67, ask yourself, why am I doing this? 68, realize what you have really been looking for this whole time is the right vehicle for telling a story about immigrants. 69, not as fairy tales or magical realism as you tried to do in some of those false starts. 70, but as a story in which they, these Taiwanese immigrants to the United States, and this is not a grammatical sentence I have written on the paper, so now I'm trying to fix it in real time, and that is not going well, I will tell you. Let me start that again. 70, Taiwanese immigrants to the United States and their attempts to assimilate to American culture and society, and they don't have a story. 71, realize what they really are, background players. 72, using the framework of a television program with an official script, with roles and a hierarchy, Give yourself the space and the permission to write about their experience through this lens. Give these characters the right to exist in their private lives off screen. Show how they have to juggle these two halves of their life, public and private. 73. Show these characters in a way that gives them their story. 74. Worry again. Is anybody going to have any idea what this thing is? 75. Watch a lot of TV when you're a kid. Remember that when you did, you rarely saw Asians. And if you did, they were always in the background, delivering food, doing martial arts. Remember that they hardly ever spoke. And if they did, it was with fake and or ridiculous sounding accents. Again, not that I have anything against an accent, but fake and ridiculous accents are fake and ridiculous. Remember that this distorted TV reality informed your sense of identity, told you what you were, put a ceiling on who you could be, internalized within you a role that you felt expected to play, invisible and silent, never the center of attention, but always keenly aware of who was. 76. Realize that for some, this consciousness might be a common experience. This feeling of being the background character trapped in someone else's story. Wanting to conform to expectations, but at the same time also wanting to subvert and transcend them. Hope that this tension is enough to inspire your novel. I'm going to skip this next one because they can all be winners. You'll never know what that one was. I don't even know what number I'm on now because I skipped it. 70-something. Remember and hope that this matters because television and movies are both cause and effect. Like it or not, they're the stories that you consume, the stories that we tell ourselves and listen to about ourselves. The inputs, the fuel, the background, cultural and mental landscape. They're what we consume and then produce and then consume in a feedback loop, where we go to see what we believe about ourselves and then sometimes believe what we see. Hope that it matters that some people have grown up never seeing themselves in TV America and therefore become in their own minds and maybe the minds of others not a part of real America. Hope that it matters that other people might read this book and learn the stories of these characters and learn about their inner lives, their subjectivity. Hope that you've done that to make invisible persons visible, to bring the inside voices out so others can hear them. Realize that maybe at this point your conceit is kind of breaking down. The boundaries, the artifice, an artifice would be kind of cool thing to explore. The boundaries, the artifice, the device that you've constructed is no longer necessary, but that's kind of the point. Steps 79 to 635. Revise a lot. Get into arguments with your editor and agent about whether or not your book makes sense. Be convinced that they don't know what they're talking about, and then realize that they do, and that's why they have the jobs that they have, and you are lucky enough to work with them because they're very good at those jobs, and then revise your book some more. Really, I mean, this book was torn down and rebuilt a few times, even after I thought I had figured it out. Step 636. We're almost there. We jumped a lot of steps. And then you're done. The book is out. And you're talking to Trevor Noah on the set of The Daily Show. January 27th, 2020, which is kind of a crazy time when you think about it. And there's a picture of the book on this huge screen behind you on the set of The Daily Show. And it's pretty surreal. You're sort of out of your body. And you are too scared to turn your head even 1 degree towards the audience, because if you do, you're pretty sure everything will lock up, or you will run off stage and into the night, never to be seen. Finally, step 637. And then you're here in Seattle, and you get to tell everyone how to write a novel in 637 easy steps. Thank you.
We'll return for the rest of the event with Charles Yu in a moment, but first I wanted to tell you about an event coming up with Percival Everett on January 23rd. Brimming with the electrifying humor and lacerating observations that have made Percival Everett a literary icon and one of the most decorated writers of our time, James, his powerful retelling of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, is destined to be a cornerstone of 21st century American literature. Tickets are available now for both in-person and online attendance at lectures.org. And now, back to Charles Yu.
Thank you, Charles. That was great. I just wanted to, I had a few questions here, and probably the most important is first just to welcome you to Seattle, which is a town where once upon a time a young Chinese boy named Bruce Lee dreamed of becoming Kung Fu Guy, and he actually did become Kung Fu Guy. So I want to pay some tribute to Bruce Lee and I think he, and his memory. He arrived here, I think, as a 13-year-old, and went to high school here and to the University of Washington, where I work. So, as we both found out that we both went to Berkeley, English majors, and I was identifying with the whole pre-med thing too. That didn't work out for me either. Although I do practice medicine. And I'm quite good at it, actually. So you graduated with a law degree from Columbia and went to work as a lawyer.
I did.
And then you quit your day job to become a writer.
I did.
So the burning question is, what did your Taiwanese parents say?
I want to answer this, but am I missing the joke about you being a doctor?
No, I was a pre-med major.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
My Taiwanese parents were okay with it, surprisingly. After my dad and I had that argument, my freshman year, it was a slow, painful process of them realizing I wasn't going to be a doctor or an engineer. And lawyer was okay, but they kind of knew my heart wasn't in it. And by the time I left the law, I was, nearing 40, had 2 kids, and they were, they're a little bit like mostly just practical concerns, like can you support your family?
Right.
You're gonna be okay. But by then, my brother had already been like a TV writer for a few years, so they knew that it was a job. They're like, okay, you can have a job. And yeah, they were excited. They still, like would ask me, like, "Are you okay on money?" Like
Right.
very, very concerned.
When I told my stepfather I wanted to go to graduate school in creative writing, he said, "Just do me one favor," which, of course, it's one of those Asian parents' one favors, that are impossible to do. He said, and I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Let's not tell the relatives right away." So let's get to the book here. Now that we cleared up all of that. So when I read it, there are two Chinatowns in your novel, both the real and the fake, and both actually exist in real life. I was really impressed, one, that you quoted Philip Choi. Philip Choi, bless his heart, would be overjoyed that he was mentioned in a National Book Award novel. By the way, step number 638 is win the National Book Award. Or make them give it to you. So I was really impressed that you bring a really convincing organic film familiarity to both Chinatowns, the real and the fake Chinatown. And the Chinatown that's Hollywood set, but also the Chinatown where real people live, where whole families and old bachelors live in the Chinatown SRO apartments and things like that. And you write in the book, quote, "You're here supposedly in a new land full of opportunity, but somehow have gotten trapped in a pretend version of the old country." I'm really curious, can you describe your research for this novel? Because you have this sort of, it's part Taiwanese, but also part street Cantonese, a real Chinatown street Cantonese too.
Well, my wife is Cantonese, and so she's
technical advisor.
Yes, unacknowledged technical advisor, and her parents. We've been together for 20 years now, so her parents are a big part of my life, and I guess I absorbed a little bit from them, maybe in terms of that side. And Philip Choi's book, San Francisco Chinatown, and Bonnie Tsui's book, American Chinatown, were invaluable in terms of just the way they sort of provided this really fascinating framework for what you talked about, how Chinatown both functioned as a set. I love Rebecca's formulation. It's a set and a mindset.
Right.
And that's what really got me fascinated as I started to read those two books.
Yeah, great. In the sort of script within your script, the cop show Black and White, in the novel, there's this ever-present, sort of binary, of racial binary of black and white characters. And you write in the book, quote, "There's something about Asians that makes reality a little too real, within that context." Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I remember when I first kind of thought of that, and I didn't know what to do with that line. I just, it was one of those things that just kind of was like a thread I had to pull on. And I guess what eventually I sort of worked out the math, of it. I was like, why is this, why do I have this, I guess two parts to it. One, why do I feel this way? And two, if this is true, what would make it true? And the first part, I think, is I feel this way because I think that there's a kind of self-consciousness that comes from any time, me watching an Asian on screen. That's like the first thing. Mm-hmm. Even my kids, who have grown up in an age where there's a lot more Asians on TV and film, still it's like the game is, oh, look, an Asian, and why? So I guess that was my empirical proof, my very scientific study of like, if it's notable to see an Asian on screen, that is breaking the reality somehow, right? It's like I felt like that there was something to this idea, and then I guess what I came up with is for a long time there were so few on screen that there was a kind of conditioning in the audience to forget that Asians exist. It's not as if you don't know they exist outside, but when you're watching TV, you sort of assume you're not going to see them. You know, there's an accepted convention that this place does not have Asians in it, this America.
Right. That's interesting. You also write, Chinatown, and indeed being Chinese, is and always a construction, a performance of features, gestures, culture, and exoticism, an invention, a reinvention, a stylization, figuring out what you're allowed to say, above all, trying to never, ever offend, to watch the mainstream, find out what kind of fiction they are telling themselves, find a bit part in it, be appealing and acceptable, be what they want to be. That's what older brother says towards the end of the book. And one of the things that I noticed, the book is about stereotypes, and the ultimate goal of a racial stereotype is to have the subject minority believe in the stereotype, right? So that the dominant society or dominant Hollywood industry doesn't have to expend any energy or expense in keeping that minority group down, and out of the mainstream. And which is interesting when Willis Wu, your main character, aspires to be Kung Fu guy, which is to remain inside the stereotype. And when he's offered something outside of that, he refuses. A role as a generic husband and father isn't a role that Willis is prepared for. It's too real for him. Am I reading that right? Or?
Yeah, no, you definitely. I mean, you're a professor of English at UW. I'm going to defer to you.
$20 for you later.
No, I really, I like that form. I feel like now I'm flashbacks of like essay question worth 50 points, and I'm gonna get a B on this.
I taught your book last quarter.
Oh, you did?
The students, so that's one of the questions.
Thank you. It literally is?
He already knew the answers.
No, I think I really like the way you framed that. I won't try to improve on it. I think it's really about, the book starts with roles like generic Asian man number 3, but it becomes about a whole bunch of other roles just between people and their lives. And then often invisible roles like, the scenes where Willis is trying to intuit sort of what's the best way to preserve his dad's dignity, for instance.
Right.
And that requires a kind of like on-the-fly acting, of like, I'm in a situation now. And
yeah, this is very real moments when his dad says, I want it better for you, not just this, but, The other thing older brother said, he says, I've never defended somebody for self-imprisonment before. And so that's also part of that concept of him staying within the stereotype, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right that in the end that it really is, Willis is on trial.
Yeah, it's not just the sort of inferiority complex that they're talking about, it's that more like self-imprisonment. Is even a greater sort of debilitating sort of place where he's at than just an inferiority complex.
Yeah, right.
The other one is just when I was reading the book, I just stopped at some of these sections, and of course professors, they like to highlight things in yellow. And one of the lines is, quote, why doesn't this face register as American? Is it because we make the story too complicated? Because we haven't figured out how yet, whether it's a tragedy or a comedy or something in between? If we haven't cracked the code, of what it's like to be inside this face, then how can we explain it to anyone else? You know, again, older brother. Every time I was reading the book, I also found myself, and maybe because it's written in second person, I was invited in, you know, to sort of share my own anecdotes, or I would be sitting there reading about Willis or older brother, and I would say, got that, you know, I got that experience covered, you know, that also happened to me, you know. And one anecdote is I was having a conversation with an insurance executive about Seattle's public art program. I was on the Seattle Arts Commission, and he suddenly interrupted our conversation about Seattle's public art program, and he said, "How long have you been in this country?" You know?
Wow.
And because I'm a comedian, I told him my actual age, you know, which at that time was 57, and he didn't get the joke.
Wow.
Right? And so he decided to keep talking. And he said, "No wonder I don't hear an accent in your voice." And so, you know, like the quote from the novel I just read, in some ways it's too exhausting to have to explain to the executive at that time. You know, I didn't say anything. I just, like, I'm too exhausted to explain.
Sure.
And as Asian as America, you know, we all have stories like that. And I was wondering if that quote I read sort of comes from, I know it comes from a number of different places, but, you know, we've all run into those kinds of, you know, I'm sure working in Hollywood,
Yeah.
working as a lawyer, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, you know, sad but not shocked to hear your story, and also kind of doing the math, realizing that probably wasn't even that long ago. I mean, it wasn't like it was decades ago, right? It's
Yeah.
I didn't mean that.
It was decades ago.
You look great.
See, everybody
You
in
look great.
Seattle knows how old I am.
Oh, yeah. You're doing great. I can only hope. It continues to. There's almost, and I think this is related to TV in a way. There's just like a hamster wheel, Groundhog Day aspect to it.
Right.
Doesn't matter how much progress. It's like
Yeah.
you still have stories like that, and it's not just a bummer. It's like, how do we get out of it? Why is it happening? What is it? And so that just makes me want to write a book about it, or just continue to ask the question of what is it? What is the inherent unassimilability of that, and of the Asian face, I guess.
Yeah. It's and I think it's well, it's a the other thing I think is it's sort of like I don't know, when you're, you know, whatever profession you're in as a screenwriter or as an attorney, are you always somewhat conscious of the fact that just before either of those labels, it's always the Asian attorney or the Asian screenwriter? You know, there are not a lot of Asian screenwriters writing non-Asian scripts.
Right. Yeah, right. It's still it's still uncommon enough in certain fields or spheres, I guess, that it can literally be a type, right? It's like, oh, we want to make this kind of a cool friend group, you know, so let's have, you know, the super tall one and the super jock one and then the Asian one, you know,
Right.
And I mean, there's a movie 4 years ago called Crazy Rich Asians. You know, it's like it's in the title that, and I enjoyed that movie. I've watched it multiple times, but I think I don't mean to use that specifically, just the idea that that could actually be the title of the movie. I know it's the title of a book, but it shows how far there is to go still, I think. And the fact that, as I think tying back to some of your earlier observations, Willis has internalized this as well. Like, I don't know that Willis, when he looks at his own face, he doesn't see Asian first before he sees anything else.
Right.
And that's a big part of what the book is about.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask some of your questions. This is from KT. Can you talk about the difficulty of talking about the Asian American experience without reference to the Black experience in the U.S.? Since you bring that in, it's a good question.
It is a good question, KT.
I'm going to put that on an exam.
Yes, very difficult. I'll be honest. I wrestled with the question. I will give you, I hope, is somewhat nutshell answer of how I interfaced with the question, which was, I have these characters, Turner and Green. They're black and white, respectively. They have their own story. In most other stories, they're the lead characters. Turner is there to basically acknowledge the issue that I am then going to spend the book not dealing with, which is that and the reason why I didn't is I didn't know how to write that book without it pulling the book into a completely different book. I had to basically create the fiction that I think TV already does, which is let's eliminate Asians and make it simple, and have an America mostly without Asians for a long time. This book was a version of that. It does have to basically oversimplify and just look at this narrow slice of the experience and say, this is a book where the black and white characters fall away into the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you talked a lot in your talk about being a novelist, and you're sitting there in your chair alone and writing a novel. I actually used to give a speech called How to Write a Novel in Only 30 Years.
You did, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But you work in two different writing worlds. There's the one that's all by yourself alone, writing a novel, and then in screenwriting, it's very collaborative. And I was interested, one of the questions is about that, how you make that transition from the highly collaborative kind of writing to the solitary one.
There was like a pretty steep learning curve for me to start to interface with other people. It's, you're sitting around a table. It's fun, but it wasn't the most, and still isn't completely the most natural thing. What I came to appreciate was, I would spend all day trying to figure out exactly what been the perfect thing to say at the moment, and meanwhile the moment was long gone, And I learned it's a team sport. That's what people told me. I didn't really understand. Not just that you're basically all throwing your ideas on the table and trying to make it into something, but that it evolves as a kind of conversation in the writer's room, where someone might say something that initially is either obvious or just doesn't seem like, what am I going to do with this? But the next person kind of plays off of it just a little bit, and before you know it, you've got something kind of interesting happening in the way conversations can lead to interesting things. And that was something I had to sort of learn firsthand, was that I wasn't in there trying to just think of everything myself. I was in there to try to do two things that don't come naturally for me anyway, and probably for a lot of novelists. One, just be in the moment and just be part of the flow of the conversation. And two, really learn to write for the show, which often means the showrunner's voice or vision, but it's not your show if you're not the showrunner. And so and that kind of ended up freeing up for me a lot of the burden, because it's I can just have fun in a way, and it's still work, it's still challenging, but it's a lot more fun than I had at first.
Is it, when you have a seat at that table, are you sort of seen as the novelist guy and responsible for story, or character? Do you have like a specialty when you're sitting at the screenwriter's table?
That's a good question. Mostly I think I have, at least at first, I was seen as the novelist guy. So no one was expecting me to like be good at the nuts and bolts, crafting an episode and knowing how to like build in that way. It was more like, oh, give us some good ideas, like let's squeeze
Story
the novelist,
ideas,
story ideas, and I think as I got a little more experience, I tried to do it, but I kind of know my role, which is not that really. It's more the focusing on how to like tone and story, I guess, and I try to focus on, because I know there are people that do the TV stuff much better, and so yeah.
You sneak an Asian guy in there every now and then?
I have not yet tried to do that. I've had the good fortune of writing on shows that had some Asian regulars on there. So.
Here's one. Do you still practice law?
I don't, and I shouldn't, because it'd be malpractice. So you do not want my legal. That doesn't stop people from asking still, though. People still email me like, "Hey, I have this contract. Can you look at it?"
I was just asking for myself,
I will look at your publishing deal.
Asian American writing is actually having its moment right now, with so many Asian American writers getting published and appearing in Sal. In fact, I was watching Jeopardy last week, and Louis Chu's 1961 novel, Eat a Bowl of Tea, was a clue on Jeopardy.
Cool.
Of course, they didn't get it. And the contestants couldn't hear me yelling at the TV. And I remember reading about your reaction to winning the National Book Award. I was really interested in that. And it just felt like it was not unlike Willis Wu being offered a role outside the usual stereotype, And suddenly for us Asian American writers, we're suddenly outside our lane, and I don't know if you have, if your work is informed by your knowledge of other Asian American writers, or is there sometimes when I'm reading an Asian American novel, I can sort of tell what books they read, that kind of thing. So I was wondering if you have a sense of that literary history.
Yeah. Now I really feel like I'm being quizzed by the editor of IE, one of the editors. I will say, with some regret and shame, probably not as good a knowledge as I would like to have had. I remember when I first was introduced to the work of the poet Lee Young Lee as an undergrad. That was kind of an inspiration, because I would say up to that point I hadn't really thought of Asian American writers as like fancy writer, that you would read in like a syllabus or something. I think when Chiang Rae-Lee's books were started to get, I guess, more mainstream appeal, I don't know what that means, more mainstream recognition. I guess he had recognition right from the beginning. But, that was another one which was sort of a breakthrough. But I don't know that I specifically have like a deep knowledge of like other Asian American writers. I sort of read who I read. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think about the themes and ideas you want to explore in your writing before you write, or does the story dictate what it wants to talk about? It's sort of like all writers give themselves an assignment before they start writing, and maybe a better question is, how do you do that process of giving yourself assignment, whether it's theme-based or subject-based or whatever?
Yeah. I think this is a little bit of what I was sort of getting at with, the struggle between the sort of genius, which thinks it's so smart, and the kind of idiot, which writes on instinct. And for me, I often make the same mistake. I don't know if you've encountered this, but it's, I get excited by a concept, and then I kind of mess around with that concept for a really long time, and then I realize concepts are boring, and then it's something either emotional or a moment or like a little bit of language that comes alive, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and then the concept comes in somehow. It's there, but so for me, it's a little bit of like I'm drawn to ideas. I know that there's like an area I want to explore, but I usually waste a lot of time then kind of bloviating about that idea until I actually have something interesting. Yeah.
You mentioned in your talk about going on book tour with your first book, and you were impressed that there were 7 people who weren't related to you in the audience. When I went on my book tour for my novel American Knees, see how I've dropped that in there. I was being interviewed by a newspaper reporter in one town, and he said to me, his first opening line was, "I don't think your characters are very believable." Right?
Wow.
Oh, great.
Wow, what a way to start off.
And he said, "Do Asian people really sit around and talk about race?" And then he said, "I have a lot of Asian friends." Uh-oh. And I've never heard them talk about race. Right? And I hope it's better out there now.
Yeah. I think it is. I mean, it's just depressing.
So I hope you've encountered more enlightened interviewers. And I remember saying to him, and we were in the newsroom, sort of the big open space, and I could see several Asian American reporters sitting there. And I said, "Why don't you ask them?"
Right.
I think we have time for a couple more questions here. I'm not going to ask that one. Nope, I'm not asking that one either. You said your book was torn down and rebuilt multiple times. Has it always existed in the form of a script, or did that evolve into the structure? I think you talked a little bit about that, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, there were versions that were so different that it's not really the same book, and so those are definitely not scripts. Those are like, there was a fairy tales version, there's a version about magic, sort of, where I was sort of comparing assimilation to a sort of magical process, and then the Willis Wu version of the book basically always existed as a script, though. So from there, I had like, a kind of like novella's worth of stuff. And then I thought, well, there needs to be more. And so that's when I started to tear down, rebuild, and always kind of keeping the core of like the ideas, what the first 50 or 60 pages where a lot of it's laid out, and then just like figuring out, well, where does this go? So yeah, but once Willis popped into existence, the script form kind of came along ancillary to that. It felt like that was the way to tell a story. Elmore
Leonard, the mystery writer, once said that he starts every book just writing 100 pages with no plot, and just having the characters talk to each other.
That's cool.
And he said that after 100 pages, he knew which character was capable of murder. And then he would go and figure out the plot of the book once he had his cast of characters. And I'm wondering, in Interior Chinatown, did you begin with the characters more than the structure or the plot?
Yeah,
Gather all these people together, the background Asians and stuff, and had them start talking to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so like the opposite of what I usually do, which is think that I'm going to analytically overplan it, but really I did a version of that, which was just have fun with it for a while until that petered out, and and then I was like, well, now I have to turn it into a book. But
right.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Another one from the audience is, I love that your stories use innovative structures and explore sci-fi, but always stays focused on a strong emotional core. Is that something that you consciously work on, or start with the structure first, or is the emotional core or that drives the drama more at the beginning sort of thought?
Yeah, it's so weird because I think that I can diagnose what I do, and yet I won't learn from it. Like I know, but I think I always have a pattern, which is I am really drawn to forms, and I like playing with. I can't really start something until I feel like I know why the story has to be told in this form, and the form and substance have to be talking to each other in a way that excites me, and then I can find a way in. And that happened with this one. But the trick is, I think, that you can't decide that. You can't I can't just say, oh, this is what's going to happen. It comes from some sideways surprise. Like a character, has a thought or says something, or I realize there's a little bit about this world, and usually that does have emotion in it, and that's the fuel for the actual.
Right. Great. Can you talk a little bit more about your experience writing for Westworld, and sort of what your role is in that particular series?
Sure. That was my first job in TV. I got really lucky, and I only wrote on the first season, so sorry, I don't know any spoilers for season 4. If that's what you're kind of fishing around for, I'm not going to tell you, because I don't know. So in that room, I was the novelist guy. I was like, what am I doing here? And I realized pretty quickly what I was doing there, which was I had written a meta science fictional novel, and this was meta science fiction, and there's a kind of philosophical bent to the show, and I think I like to kind of muck around in that, and so I was part of a writing team. The showrunners for some reason hired me, and I had no script sample, so they must have read my fiction, I think, and I was lucky. One of the showrunners, she's a former lawyer too, so maybe she took pity on me, and but they were wonderful people, and it was like a crazy room. It was intense because a lot of really great writers in there, and they had to figure out what they were doing. Yeah, I guess my role was I was the most junior person by far, and my role was to pitch. Well, no one said this to me. This is the niche I think I tried to get for myself, which was to bring in ideas about AI or philosophy of mind that I had read from some book.
Right.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm like, that sounds kind of good, and I would. And pitch those ideas, and then sometimes they would sort of weave into the fabric of the show.
So you had a thought that when you're the first day you're sitting there with the other writers in the writer's room, you have a thought that, what am I doing here? I'm not a screenwriter.
Yes. Yes. I had that thought for years, and it was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But also, what am I doing here?
They're paying me to be here.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There was, I compared it to like fantasy baseball camp or something where like,
Yeah.
it just felt like this is not a job. I can't believe, when is
Is there is there an equivalent, like you mentioned working with a book editor and on your novel and doing that revision process. What's the screenwriter equivalent to a book editor? Is it the showrunner or
That's a good question.
who's in charge? Is there a head writer?
There is, yeah. There's like,
Do they act like an editor, or is it more sort of like a coach?
yeah, they often there are kind of producers and people at like the studio or network that will, in the way an editor does, give you notes on what they think is maybe not working with the story. So that would be kind of the rough analogy, I guess. With the difference being like, an editor, I guess there's not that much of a difference. I mean, the editor is like your publisher, and then the studio is the people that will eventually distribute the thing. So,
Right. I think we're pretty much out of time here. I want to thank Charles Yu for coming to Seattle and for this rare opportunity to have an in-person event. And so thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It was an honor to host Charles Yu in 2022 and to bring him back on our podcast today. If you enjoyed listening, we welcome you to join us in person or virtually for our 37th season as we hear from authors like Abraham Verghese, Percival Everett, and C. Pam Zhang. Get your tickets at lectures.org. Thank you to the Seattle Arts and Lectures staff, board, and community, and thanks to all of you for listening. Our show is produced by Jack Straw Cultural Center with theme music by Daniel Spills. To hear more, subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, and while you're there, rate and review us 5 stars so that more people can enjoy Sal on Air.